Hello everybody, Thomas Fleming again. I'm in my jacket again. It rained all night. Everything's wet. I had to get out of the site. So I'm just making this video before I go set up my next site. Because I know I just had moving day and I have to have it again. I forgot and didn't book continuous sites. I had 2 days open. And I had 2 days and I had to work one of the days. Sometimes we mess up. I've had a good time, so I'm not worried about it. I just got to wait a little bit. Someone's in the site that I want to move into, so they got to get out of there. We don't have to check out till noon, and I'm at 9 o'clock. So, all right. I was thinking while I was doing my work this weekend, I'm so glad that I'm amateur at what I'm doing, or choose to be independent, I guess would be a better word, because I'm not an amateur. But the professionals that become very well known, they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. Everybody recognizes them. They're either asking for autographs or want to talk, or I've got a script, but you want to read it? Yeah. Most scripts, even by the best writers, need to be fleshed out. So, you know, one person who had to put up with this all the time, Jesus. He became famous, not because he came to save the world, but because he was healing people and feeding people. He became famous for the wrong thing, and they were following him along. And it's just like I say here, sometimes I've got to get away so I can have some quiet time. He had to do that too. You know, he'd send the apostles out on the ship, and he'd go climb on a mountain, get up on top of it away from everybody. It's not so much being high, getting close to God, it's just simply being away from everybody, because you've got to be able to focus on God. And that's what the problem we're facing today. There's so many distractions. So you don't have to be famous to be caught up in stuff. You know, for a long time during the Big C, if you went around without your mask on, you became famous. There'd be people yelling at you. Depend on the venue, of course. You know, sporting events, massage parlors, whatever the necessity, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever job or whatever work you did that was a necessity to the people, you could still do, and you didn't have to worry about a mask a lot of the times. That's why I'm proud of some of the pastors out in California that stayed open, refused to be shut down. They couldn't arrest them, they knew that, so they tried fining them. There's one church that's still got a fine, a big hefty multi-million-dollar fine on it, plus interest and penalties and all kinds of stuff. They're piling on. They know that if they overwhelm an organization with lawsuits and there's no one to protect them, that they end up walking away. I'm an ex-Boy Scout master. I don't condone what the Boy Scouts are doing now. They became woke. I don't approve of that, so I no longer endorse the Boy Scouts, because they were threatened with lawsuit after lawsuit. I don't know what the argument would be if they want to be called the Boy Scouts and not let girls in. They've got the Girl Scouts. If the Girl Scouts isn't run right, get with them and get them to run it right. We're talking about young men and girls approaching puberty. You want to keep them separate during that time, believe me. And yet they caved, they gave in. There were exceptions, always. If we were out in the middle of nowhere and there's a small troop and a girl didn't have a place to join, there was no Girl Scouts, they would let her in, but we're dealing with one. I'm still getting water falling on me from the tree. I've got a tree right here. So because it was something that they were able to do in rare situations, they fought it in court and made them do it 100% of the time. It's not good. Our legal system is designed to protect us. This idea that men are competing in sports on women's teams is completely absurd. I don't care if you're for that. If you're for that, I hope you like hell, because that's where that belongs. Men and women are not the same. If we're working the same kind of job, yeah, get paid the same. But where you have to laxen the rules, it's like if I want to have a 80-pound tiny female fireman come haul my big butt out of the, excuse my language, but it's aggravating, out of a second-story window when I got a 6'4" fireman standing right there, but they had to hire her, that's wrong. Now, if you can find a 6'4" muscular female, there are them out there, look to Russia. But they're throwing common sense out. They're doing it on purpose. It's making people mad, it's dividing us, and it's distracting. And while it's distracting, they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. The world that's coming is, we can't imagine how bad it is. I think that, well, the world that's during the tribulation is worse than the first century. And they were feeding Christians to lions. So what's coming is far worse. We have to do our best to stay focused, stay in the Word, encouraging one another. We have brothers and sisters in Christ that are struggling. You know, you can take a struggle as, oh, I must have done something wrong, you know, God's punishing me. Or if you are confident you didn't do anything wrong, at least to deserve the punishment, well, then I'm being tested or I'm being hardened for whatever task is coming. It's perspective. But I can imagine what it would be like to have to, you know, hide. I've known some celebrities and it's like, let's go have some dinner someplace. Well, where do you go? That they're not going to be recognized. There are some restaurants that have places in the back that they've got there. There was one restaurant when I was out in Portland one time that I'd go with some of the cast, and they'd have an area upstairs and in the dark so that nobody could see them up there. You got to find places like that. That's sad. And believe me, I mean, after spending a day acting, actors are not the characters that they play. They don't even say the words that are theirs most of the time. Sometimes you can ad-lib, but most of the time an actor is behaving the way they're told to behave in a situation that's created for them and saying the words that were written for them. Don't put actors on pedestals. Now, 99% of my work is all independent because I don't like unions. Now, if you're in a union, I'm not criticizing you. In general, unions are not necessary anymore. The reason unions were created is to protect the worker from the company. They were overworking them, you know, putting them in situations that were dangerous, things like that, so the unions were necessary. We have laws now to protect the worker in each of these situations. The union is a wasted dinosaur, and it won't go away because people are taking money and spending it for themselves, on themselves, and enjoying, very good life. The union bosses, they make a lot of money. They buy a lot of politicians, which is really the only job of a union now, is to raise enough money to help get your guy elected so that he can give favor to your profession. And of course, they're designed as a pyramid scheme. You have to get new people in to pay for the people's pensions that are already in. It's not self-funding. It's a pyramid scheme. And every so often, every so many years, the government has to step in, and it's typically a left-leaning government, steps in and bails out the unions. Gives them a whole bunch of money. It's like, here, shore up your pension plan. As long as they do that, there's no reason to fix the pension plan. So these guys get a lot of money when they retire. More than they need. My dad was a professional athlete. Now, I don't think he ever got to the point of being so well known that he had to worry about it. But he played with players that were well known. He played with Ted Williams on his team when he played for Boston. Where do these people go? Everybody, if you're a baseball fan and you're in that town, you're going to recognize your key athletes. Jesus can actually come here today, though, and preach, and nobody would know it was him if he didn't say who he was, because nobody knows what he looked like. That was smart. If we knew exactly what he looked like, and he doesn't look like the paintings and the statues and stuff that we see, the idol worshiping that people do, he doesn't look like any of that. He might look like a couple of guys in some of the movies of late, but we don't know. He was Jewish, living in the Middle East, so he wasn't blonde-haired, blue eyes. That would have been so unique that would have been something you could describe in a gospel someplace. But it said he was average, nothing comely, nothing to stand out. So he's going to look like everybody else. And everybody else were darker skin, olive skin anyway, and dark hair. Had a beard, I'm sure. They didn't have Gillette back then. Yeah, they did shave. A lot of the Romans did because they thought it was cleaner to see your face. But most people didn't. It was a lot of work. I'm enjoying this. This will be probably the last time you're going to see it this color, at least for a while, because I just did my work yesterday, including going through and saying some lines that I was supposed to say in May, because I'm going to have this darkened for my next role. I do the acting bit because I enjoy it. I get to play all these different characters. Harrison Ford said that in an interview once. Look at all the characters I get to play. Here comes the wind and it's shaking the leaves and I'm getting wet. Oh well. I got to kill a lot of time, so no problem. I'm just sitting here talking. I'm at my Riverside again for another Riverside Chat. But the topic is, we get distracted, but we can get distracted by being a famous person. I've known quite a few famous people. 9 times out of 10, they're nice human beings. Every once in a while, you get somebody who's been so jaded by the industry that they're hard to get along with. And they think everybody's there to get something from them. I've talked to actors, and I did not ask for autographs. I have asked for autographs, but in a proper environment. You want to get an actor's autograph, go to a convention that they're at. They're there to make money, and they're signing autographs is one way to do it. But I get to see all kinds. I mean, I've been in the green room, which is the waiting room, with actors before. I've been in the green room with, I'm a Star Trek fan, with William Shatner. He doesn't really like to talk Star Trek. And I understand, because it is a role you play. You don't go around all day long, make it so, or, are we ready for lunch? Yeah, make it so. And I know Picard's the one for that, but Shatner did say it once. They're not their characters. And people are infatuated with their characters, but it's not them. So I understand that part of it. But they got famous playing a role, so they've got to at least pay it the tribute by being nice. And Shatner's nice most of the time. He just doesn't answer Star Trek questions that much. Now, you want to talk to him in person about things that he would love to talk about, ask about his ranch or his horses. He loves horses. He's got a number of philanthropy type things going on. I think he's 92 and he's still working. Yeah. He didn't get typecast in the show. A lot of the people did. But he was smart. He started his T.J. Hooker show, the cop show, right after Star Trek ended. So he'd be seen as something else and not typecast. That's smart. He is a smart man. And if you follow him on Twitter, which I do, he gets on there and he talks almost every day. He's got so many followers, the likelihood of him responding to anything you say is minimal, but even if he knows who it is, it's minimal. And now that the blue check mark now you have to pay for, I don't know. A lot of these people aren't working and can't afford $8 a month. That's what happens to actors when they stop acting. They didn't manage their money well, and they're living in a dream world, so why would you think they manage their money well? A lot of actors have mismanaged their money. It's been good for the audience in some cases. Doris Day, in all of her films, made millions of dollars, and she hired a thief for a manager. That's essentially what he was. He stole all of her millions of dollars, buying stuff for himself. He legitimately stole the stuff, and I think he got away with it because the way the contract was written, he could do that. So the last few movies that she made because she had to survive, to get more money back in. So her and Rock Hudson, when they worked together, all those movies were made afterwards, and we got some funny movies to work with, to watch. People do that. Other actors have mismanaged their money by buying, Nicolas Cage bought so much real estate just before the crash, and he had to go back to work. He owed money, he owed taxes, he went back to work and paid it off. They deal with the same kind of things we do, just on different scales. So don't put actors on pedestals. And if you're an actor and you're in a position of highlight, you have got to do your best to help people. Now, maybe you got to buck Hollywood a little bit. Some actors have done that. Kevin Sorbo was one that did that. He played Hercules early on. Very well, very muscular. But some of the steroids, I think, probably, it almost killed him. It brought him to the Lord, which was the main thing. And now he does all these Christian films. So actors can be used properly. I know other actors personally that I've worked with, and they're nice people. They're good people. But they do have to deal with that celebrity part. So if you see an actor, acknowledge him and be nice. Tom Cruise, who I've worked with, they asked him, do you ever go out in public? He's got handlers and bodyguards and stuff that try to keep an eye on him, and they don't like it when he does. And he tells a story that one time he was on a train in New York, I guess, and he had his ball cap on and looking down and not really paying attention. He looked over and there's some young girl, teenager type, and she kept looking at him and kept looking at him, and she either recognized him or thought she did. And then He looked over and he caught her looking right at him. She looked around the rest of the train and nobody else is paying attention. They've all got their heads down in their phones, but she's paying attention. And Tom Cruise goes, well, I looked at her and I went. She nodded. So sometimes it can work out, but a lot of times it may not. So be nice to these people. They're performers. They're just like, stage actors. You see them up on stage. You're not in an environment that makes it look real. You're in a box, basically, with seats in front of it. But you can still get drawn into the play if it's good acting. I've tried it. I don't like it. I don't like the repetition. I like the fact that every time I go up to do something, it's something different. And on stage, it's not. You say the same words every day. And if you're doing Shakespeare, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, you better say it right. You make one mistake on a word, and that'll be the headline on the next day. So-and-so mispronounces the word or messes up his lines in Shakespeare. Nah, that's all they remember. They don't remember the good parts. They remember where you mess up. But plays are fun to go watch. I love to watch that. You can see how people can draw on themselves and bring themselves out. It's great to see an actor blossom, if you will. We all have the capability of doing that. And again, if you're in a role where you're used to talking like that and being with people, you're better qualified to talk to people about God. That's why I can do this easily, because I'm used to it. And it's not acting. I'm not acting when I'm talking here. If you can't tell that, then I'm either a perfect actor, which I'm not, or I'm being sincere. I don't have a reason to act when I'm doing this, unless I'm trying to demonstrate something, but there's no reason to act. I'm giving you word that God has given me, and I'm just passing it on. So I'm really nothing more than a messenger. And occasionally I do ask for tips. But that's all we're supposed to be. We aren't supposed to go around and yell at people and tell them the word and tell them you're going to hell, and if you don't straighten up, and I'm not going to have anything to do with you, I hate you because of what you are and what you do. That is not, I repeat, not the way you deal with people. We're told many times to deal with people with compassion, the same way Jesus did. He heals people that were lepers. They were being shunned by everybody else. He didn't have any problem dealing with them. He performed the miracles, and a lot of it was to get attention, so the people would come to him. It's hard to preach to people when you've got 2 people there, and you could preach to 2 people, but if you can get 5,000, it's so much better. That's why I try to encourage you to help me to share this channel. I told God I would do this if I only had 2 subscribers. But the more people that I can reach with God's message, the more people I pray will be helped. So Jesus had to draw people to him, and the easiest way was to heal and then to feed. And then the word gets around. You want a free meal? Go over here. I've done some volunteer work on occasion at places that feed people. And while they feed them, there might be somebody over here reading out of the Bible aloud. Got to use bait. If food is the bait, you use it. Maybe you've got an act, a performing act. There are Christian comedians, and they're funny, and they don't use cuss words. They're PG, not even PG, they're G. Some of the comedians cross the line a little bit. I prefer that they don't. I forget who the comedian was. Was it, I forget which one it was. One of the main big famous comedians years ago used to come out and say, why do comedians, Red Skelton, why do comedians have to cuss and swear? You can't say something funny unless you cuss and swear. He never did that, and he was a very funny clown and a talented painter if you haven't seen his clown paintings. Now he's gone now, but you can probably still find his paintings. They'd be pretty expensive if you can find them, but you can get a print, put those up. You know, everybody's clown makeup has to be different. You can't copy somebody. That's the clown creed. Whatever you put up for makeup, I've done clown makeup myself. I might throw it in here, I don't know. It's not about me. But every clown makeup has to be different. Now, you can be close because all clowns have, you know, something similar, but they're unique, just as people are unique. And they're entertainers designed to make us laugh. And laughter comes from God, so don't say it's a bad thing to laugh. Anything can be used for bad. But if it's used for good, laughter is the best medicine. You feel better. And it's nice to be able to have something to laugh at. And not necessarily the Saturday Night Live pratfalls or things that they would do. These guys are on pain meds in their older days because they've injured themselves with these pratfalls, falling over things. Now, some people are capable of doing it. It'd be surprising how many actors who play tough, serious roles have so much talent in something else. They're playing bad guys and they're real mean, and they're, you know, Wolverine would be a good example. Jackman is a very great performer that got into that role. He did a good job in the role, playing his pseudo-superhero, but I've worked with him, and he's a nice guy in person, and yet he's been, you know, in The Greatest Showman, sing and dance and all this other stuff. Talent is something that some people have naturally. It goes along with the gifts. God gives us all gifts. So what's your gift? If you tell me you don't have one, you're not trying. Figure out what you would enjoy doing the most. And I guarantee you, your gift is going to fit into whatever you enjoy doing the most. God gives us our gifts based on each individual. So if you thought being a clown would be something fun to do, then do it. Oh, but it doesn't pay as much. If you're happy, you can't buy enough happiness. People try. They buy drugs and they try, and it doesn't work. It might work for a little bit of time. But then you got to take more and more and more until you kill yourself. It doesn't work. True happiness comes from God, serving God, being what we were designed to be. So, you say, well, I got to get out there and get to work. No, you got to get out there and be yourself for God. If you enjoy doing what you're doing, it is not work. Making these videos is not work. So no excuses. Use your gifts. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to go edit it, and then I'm going to go check in. And we're finally getting some sun out, which is desperately needed because everything's wet. See you in the clouds.